Stephen Hurahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video I'm chatting to Jacob Cass from Just Creative. Now, if you've been around the design industry for a while, then you know who Jacob Cass is. He's an absolute veteran in the industry. He's an influencer of hundreds of thousands of followers, and his audience, some of his audience have reached out to him to ask him questions about brand strategy. A lot of them are interested in transitioning from being a brand designer to a brand strategist. So some of those questions allowed myself and Jacob to have an in-depth conversation and a chat and get into the nitty-gritty about what brand strategy is all about. So some of the questions that we cover include how to sell brand strategy, what the deliverables are of brand strategy, and do you need to become a brand strategist? Can you not just be a designer today? There's a lot of talk about brand strategy. Is that a road that you need to go down? So we get into all of those details and more in this video, so check it out.
This is Jacob Cass, and I have with you today Stephen Hurahan, who is the author of Brand Master Secrets, which is a brand strategy course that I've taken. And I'm really promoting at the moment because I just love the course, and I think more designers need to see this and get involved with this course and get involved with brand strategy. I sent out an email and some tweets and posts on social media asking you guys for some questions to ask Stephen and myself. And I've compiled them here for you today to answer some of the most frequently asked questions. And I think there's a lot of disconnect about what brand strategy is. A lot of discussion about what it is and what it isn't, and it means something different to everyone. And people may feel like it's not enough just to be a designer anymore. They may have to evolve to be a brand strategist. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this and how designers can get involved if they need to make the leap.
Yeah, look, absolutely. You know, there is a lot of misunderstanding about what brand strategy is, what it's not, you know, what you need to be providing to clients, what you don't need to be providing. And you know, you're right, there are a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different opinions on it. But look, at the end of the day, you know, you don't need to do anything regardless of what field you're in. If you are doing graphic design, if you're doing print design, brand design, UX design, whatever design you're doing, if you love what you do, if you enjoy what you're doing, and you know you're in the position that you want to be in, you know, you're working with the clients that you want to work with, you're getting paid the money that you want to get paid, you know, things are good in your area, then you know you don't need to change that, you don't need to become anything else. But you know, if you are in a position where you know you're not working with the clients that you want to work with, you're finding that you know you want to be able to provide a better service, you want to be able to you know go the full gamut as far as brand strategy is concerned, well then yeah, that's definitely an option for you to evolve in what you're doing. You know, if you're designing a brand, then you are part of the brand building process. Now, how much of that brand building process you're a part of is totally up to you. You know, you might just want to do the design part of the brand building process, but if you do start to, you know, kind of go out on your own and start building brands from scratch, then you're going to find yourself doing a lot more strategic work. So if you're in an agency, for example, you know, you can design all day, every day, in a junior position, a midway position, a senior position. You can show up to the design studio, that agency, and design all day, every day. And if that's what you love and that's what you want to do, well then absolutely. But if you decide to go out on your own and start to freelance, then you'll find that you know the experts that you had available to you in the agency that you were working at, be it the art director or the strategist who took a lot of that strategic work on, is no longer available to you. So you're going to have to go down the road of strategy, at the very least, to understand who your audience is. You know, you're going to have to really dig deep into, okay, so who is this logo for, who's this brand for, and what's the best way to appeal to them. So if you go into the freelance realm and you become a freelance designer, then that's one of the first things that you're going to have to face when you start designing your logos for your own clients, because they're your own clients now. Whereas when you were at the agency or the studio before, you were dealing with the studio's clients. Now they're your clients. So you need to fully understand their business. You need to fully understand the audience that they're trying to attract. And then you need to begin to build a brand around that. So you do need to take on more of a strategic role as a freelance designer as opposed to a designer as an employee in a studio. And the question then becomes, how far down that road do you want to go? How far down the strategy road do you want to go? You're already looking into who the audience is and possibly who your competitors are. But then it goes a little bit further than that from that point. It goes into differentiation strategy, positioning strategy, and then of course you have, your personality and your communication strategy, etc. So the question becomes, how involved do you want to be in the brand building process? Brand design is just one part of it. If you want to be just a brand designer and if you love design and that's what you want to do, then no, you don't need to branch out and become a strategist. If you're working with the clients that you want to work with, you're getting paid the amount that you want to get paid, and you're in the position that you want to be, well then no, you don't need to evolve anywhere past where you are already at the moment. But as I said, if you do want to branch out into freelance and you do want to start building your own client base and serving those clients on a higher level and fixing their business problems on a broader scale and become not just a small part of the brand building process, but an entire part of the brand building process, well then strategy is definitely something that you need to have a firm grasp on.
That's a good answer. And just to give some perspective on me, I was a purely, I guess not purely, but I focus a lot on brand identity design. So I did a lot of logos and brand identity, and that was all well and good. And when I was taking this course and many other strategy courses and books and resources, I found you can really bring so much more to the table if you do learn strategy, and you can charge specialist fees as well because you offer something that many others don't. So that's kind of where I'm at personally. But yeah, I want to move into the next question, which was from Nicole Williams, who asked, what exactly is brand strategy and what would my deliverable be apart from a logo? I had a similar question when I first heard about brand strategy. Was I doing this at the beginning? How is it different to what I'm doing? Is there a document that outlines everything, how the brand should work? So a lot of questions. I think it's a good one, and a lot of designers would love to hear your answer.
Yeah, so obviously when you're providing logo designs, you just provide the graphics at the end. Now there might be some discussion with the client as to, the strategic considerations as far as, the market they're in, the audience that they're targeting. They might even have their own idea of what their differentiation strategy is. And then of course, you use that in the design of your logos. But at the end, you just provide that logo. You might go so far as to provide a style guide if you're building out a full brand identity system. But when it comes to developing a full brand strategy and what the deliverables are on that, well then, it goes a lot deeper than just the visuals, and the process goes a lot deeper than just the visuals. So, you really need to dig deep into who the audience is, and a lot of the information that you get comes out from the client in the discovery session that you hold with them. So you get your idea of what their brand should look like, who they're targeting, what their difference is. And then you take the information that they give you and you couple that with research, with your own research. You research into who their audience is, because they might have an idea of who their audience is, but when you really dig into who their audience is, you find out a lot more about them than what your client will know. And these insights that you find will open doors and will shine a light on opportunities and potential gaps in the market that your client might not have known about. So brand strategy is about uncovering all of that. And once you have a very clear idea on who your audience is and the market landscape that you're playing in, then you can start to really develop out the strategy. And that starts with the positioning strategy and the position that you want to take in the market for that client, for that brand. And everything else within the brand is built from there. You lay the foundations with who your audience is. You understand the market conditions, you understand your competitors, and then you start to build the rest of the branding blocks on top of that. Your positioning strategy, you start to develop your human brand personas. So, your brand is not just a corporate entity, it's got, a bit of personality about it. And then of course your visuals come after that, and you've got your communication strategy and maybe some storytelling in there as well. So there are a lot of different elements within a strategic brand, and the deliverables on that strategic brand is essentially the elements that you build. So you want to build all of those strategic elements up and document them. How is this brand going to behave? What you give to your client at the end is not just a guide to tell them how to use the visuals. It's actually a manual that they can use to go out and express their brand. So think of the deliverable as a brand management manual, something that they're going to be able to look at and understand, okay, well, this is our position. They're going to be able to understand, okay, well, this is how our brand is going to express itself through a personality, through a tone of voice, through the language that we use, through the communication framework. What have we identified as the core elements that we want our audience to understand about our brand, and how are we going to deliver those messages? What stories are we going to tell? So your deliverables is essentially a manual that you hand over to your client, which outlines every element of the brand and how to go out and express that brand, so the brand manager can open that and know how to send out messages into social media, through their email, through their everyday communication, through their advertisements. So that is the deliverable of brand strategy. You're not just handing them visuals, you're not just handing them design files and a style guide that says, you can't have the logo looking like this, and it can't be at an angle, and you can't use this color, you can't use that color. At the end of the day, a brand manager is not really going to apply that himself. He might hand that style guide over to another designer to, keep the brand within those style guides. But as far as expressing the brand is concerned, a brand manager would be able to use a brand strategy manual to go out and express the brand the way it has been determined in the strategy. So that is the deliverable, a manual to be able to go out and express the brand in the marketplace the way it has been determined in the brand strategy.
Well said. Thanks for that insight. I think the next leading question would be from Bautista de Lucereta. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but he asks.
I think, mate, I think you.
The question is, how do we validate our brand strategy session? And so I'm guessing he's asking, how do you sell through strategy and the value of it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question, and when it comes to the clients that you deal with, so you're going to know the types of clients that you get, and if you get clients sending you inquiries saying, how much for a logo, well then, chances are you haven't positioned your own brand effectively enough, because you're setting your stall out as an everyday generalist designer, and everyday generalist designers don't have an edge in the marketplace, because everyday generalist designers are on every corner of the globe selling their services at all different price points. But if you do have those types of clients who are reaching out to you and asking for a logo, or they're asking for some very specific design services, and that they need more than that, that a logo on its own is not going to help them to get to their desired destination, well then you open the conversation up. You ask them, okay, I'm happy to provide you with those deliverables, but do you have some kind of strategic guidance for me? Because I'm an awesome designer, I can create awesome logos, but if I don't have any strategic direction, well then it's not going to mean anything. It's just going to be a graphic that looks good. And that kind of opens up the question and gets them thinking, well, what do you mean? What do I need to give you in terms of strategic direction? You can ask them if they have a brand strategy that they can send you. Now, of course, they're not going to have a brand strategy. They're coming to you looking for a logo. But what it does is it opens up the conversation. It allows you to introduce the idea of brand strategy to them. And they might be hearing this for the first time. They might understand a little bit about what brand strategy is, but it allows you to open up that conversation. And from here, it's all about education. You know, the question was, how do you sell strategy? Well, you don't have to sell strategy if you educate your clients well enough. If you start to talk to them about their business and, about where they want to go with their business, then it's going to become evident, it's going to become very clear that a logo on its own is not going to help them to get them to where they want to go. And, that allows you to start to talk to them, more strategically about, what they want to do, about how they want to approach the market, how they're going to be different, what conversations are they going to have with their clients. And, as I said, sometimes when you speak to a client about these things, especially those clients who have asked for a logo, they're hearing about this stuff for the first time. Now, I don't know about you, but, if I go into any kind of field that, I'm looking to, get some kind of service and I don't know too much about that service, well, then I'm relying on the other person to kind of fill me in on the stuff that I don't need to know. Now, I'll go in with my question and say, I need this. And, chances are I don't need that at all. Their level of expertise and their understanding, if they ask me a few questions, they'll be able to find out, well, no, you need something different. I guess the example that I'm kind of thinking of here would be a mechanic. You go in with a problem with your car and you think it's one thing, and you hand it over, they realize that it's not that thing that you thought it was. And, your question there then is, well, do you want them to tell you what the real problem is, or do you want them to just fix what you thought was the problem and hand it back over to you? Well, you're going to want them to tell you what that problem was. And it's the same when it comes to branding. They think that they need a logo because they've seen it everywhere. You can go and get a logo. You can start a business, with next to no investment, and away you go. But, if they are lucky enough to come in front of you, who has a little bit of understanding about strategy and a little bit about what they need to get to where they're going, then you can open up that question and you can educate them. You can educate them on what they actually need. And as I said, if you do a good job, if you educate them without selling anything, you're not being salesy here. You're not trying to close the deal. You're just trying to highlight the road that they didn't know existed. That is the best way for them to get to their goals. So that's how you open the conversation up about strategy, and that's how you sell strategy, just by educating them. By the end of the call, by the end of the session, if you've done a good job and you send them on their merry way, well, then you've given them a lot of food for thought. And if they go out and find a logo designer after that, and decide to go down just the logo route, well, then for a fact that they're closing their eyes to a fundamental problem that they have. So, as I said, just educate your clients. When you understand brand strategy in and out, when you understand the deliverables, when you understand what a brand strategy can do for a business, then just having that open conversation and talking to those prospects will open the door for you to take them on as a brand strategy client.
Yeah, exactly. And the more you know, the easier it is to talk about as well. And you can sell through that idea of the path they need to follow and educate them on it. I love your analogy of the mechanic. I think that's a really useful one.
Yeah,
Useful one
yeah,
to
because
use.
I'm useless when it comes to cars, so I'm always relying on the mechanic. And you always think that you're getting cheated out because you don't know what you're talking about. And when
Yeah.
you're in that, when you're at a disadvantage and you don't know, you rely more heavily on the other people to be honest and be upfront with you and give you their expertise. And if they do that in a genuine way, if they're not salesy and they just educate you and give you some insight and some information that you didn't have before without asking for anything, well, then the trust is already going to be built there, and you're going to start that relationship off in the right way.
Yeah, definitely. And I love how where we're going with this. The flow is here now, and we've answered like what the we've cleared the myths about what brand strategy is and how we can actually sell it. So once we've sold it through, how do we actually start with brand strategy? How do we go through a session with the client? That question is from Prince Simonow. So yeah.
Yeah, so this definitely ties in with the education, but just like any brand. So think about any brand. How does any brand connect with their audience? So when you're in that situation of talking to a prospect, you are the brand and they are the audience. So the way you start the session off is by understanding who your audience is, understanding their pain points. And this is branding 101. This is brand strategy 101. You got to understand their pain points. You got to understand the challenges that they're going through, the journey that they've been on, and the emotional connections that they have to their challenges as well. And if you understand that, then you're able to have much better, much more in-depth conversations. But what I would say when it comes to speaking to your prospect and starting that brand strategy session off in the right way is open the floor for them to talk about themselves. Okay, so if your prospect has taken the time to develop their own business, to come up with the idea for their own business, then chances are they're going to be passionate about it. They're going to have some kind of passion about that business that they've started. Maybe they're fixing a problem that they came across themselves and they found a better way to fix that problem, and now they've built a business around that idea. Then they're going to be very much emotionally tied in to that business, and will really want that business to succeed. And just giving them the floor to open up about where that business has come from, why it started, what they want to do with that business, what's their big idea about the business. It'll just open the floor for them to really open up and give them an opportunity to talk about their business, because chances are they haven't had this opportunity before, other than to speak with their spouse or maybe a friend or two, to really open up about their big idea. Because look, they're not starting a business to for it to fail in 6 months time. That's not why they've started the business. They're thinking about the 10-year plan. They're thinking what life looks like in 10 years time, when the brand has hit a big and they've made a big success of it. So give them the opportunity to dream and to kind of open that up. And as they're doing that, as they're talking about their business and they're showing that passion, well then reciprocate and show interest, show genuine interest in what they're doing. And if you would agree with the idea that they have and what they're saying, well then build that up and kind of give them that confidence to keep that conversation going. And that's the starting point. Once you've given them that floor to open up, and you've shown that genuine interest, again you're gonna have built the bond there. And that starts the session off on the right foot to then go on and to start to talk in a lot more detail about what the possibilities are for their brand. Now essentially you want to ask specific questions that will tie into the branding elements that you want to build. So you're going to ask them what their strengths are, and why why their customer would choose them over their competitors. And the answers that they're going to give will be their idea as to what their position might be, or their idea as to how they might communicate. And you take all of their input, and as I said, you couple that with your research, and then you put those two together, and that's where you begin to develop the individual elements of the brand strategy. But first and foremost, you need to open up that conversation. You need to give them the opportunity to talk about their business, and then follow that conversation up with education, with teaching them about the specific brand strategy elements that will be able to help their business to be successful. And it's going to become very clear if this conversation is done in the right way. If you give the right amount of value, it's going to become very clear to them that they're going to need more than just the visual identity that they came to you for. So yeah, giving them the floor to open up and to really think about their business as as this project that they have, this goal that they have to where they want to get to. And that it kind of removes the conversation about talking about a logo and having the conversation based around, well, yeah, I like this logo, I like this logo, I like this typography. It takes a step back and it looks at the bigger picture. And that's where the game starts. That's where all of the input starts, all of the ideas start to flow in terms of what you can do strategically with that brand. And that's where you gather all the information, and you start to set in place the groundwork for building that strategic brand.
Yeah, and I'm surprised you didn't mention any of your worksheets, because there's a lot of tools in your course that that are there to help facilitate these discussions and to actually figure out, well, hone in on those things that they're talking about, and to get on paper to actually have something to refer to as well. Did you want to give any insight to that?
Yeah, so look, so that's getting more into the strategic development as opposed to starting off the session. But
Hmm.
at each and every step of the process, you're going to need to go out and you're going to need to do some research. You're going to need to do some strategizing and thinking and gathering of information, and you're going to need tools to do that. So every single step of the brand building process has its own individual steps and its own individual techniques and processes that you need to go through to make sure you're developing that brand strategy in the most effective way possible. So within Brandmaster Secrets, you've got all of the tools in which to do that. Every single brand element that you need to build, you've got the correct worksheets, you've got the cheat sheets, you've got the templates that you need. So it's simply a case of, step one, do this, step two, do this. And you've got the playbook within Brand Strategy Secrets as well. So, you're not wondering, do I need this worksheet now? Do I need that worksheet? You're going through the playbook and you're going step one, step two, step three. Step three, you need to refer to this workbook, and you need to refer to this worksheet within this workbook. And this is what you need to go out and get. And then you need to bring that information into this worksheet. And this is how you start to build your strategic brand. There's a lot of elements that you need to build, and there's a lot of data that you need to gather. There's a lot of things that you need to understand. You need somewhere to collect all of that information. So those worksheets are, the foundation of building that brand. You really do need those worksheets. You need somewhere to gather all that information. So your brand strategies are consistent. You're not just jumping from one element to the next. You've got your processes, you've got your systems in place, and you're being consistent. And the more and more you do it, the better you become, and it just becomes second nature after that.
Yeah, for sure. So once you do get into the course, you'll definitely understand everything Stephen's talking about. It may be a little overarching right now, but yeah, like you're saying, everything is step by
Yeah,
step.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I was talking about it more before from an early stage, from the starting off the discovery session. But as I
yeah,
said, once you get into it, it does get into a lot of detail, and there's a lot of individual steps. Not that they're difficult. It's not difficult. Brand strategy is not complex. It's just about knowing the process. It's about knowing the steps, and being able to recall what those steps are again and again, so it becomes second nature, and it becomes a lot easier.
great. Okay, well, I think this leads into another question. I'm getting some difficult names here. This one, Rizna Robino. So this one, they ask, I'm always told in branding workshops that in order to connect with your audience, your brand needs to have a personality. My question is, how do you find and develop the personality of your brand?
Yeah, so look, that's a good question, and that's actually one of the first questions that I asked myself when I came across brand strategy. I wanted to understand all of the elements of building a strategic brand, and brand personality was one of them. And that's when I came across archetypes. So archetypes are a scientific framework that you can use to build out your brand personality. And essentially, you so archetypes were developed by Carl Jung. That was early 1900s. And they were a personality framework that that breaks pretty much every personality up into 12 distinct personalities. And if you understand this framework and you understand the science behind it, then you're able to use it to first understand what the personality of your audience is, and then understand their desires, and then develop an archetype that is best suited to appeal to those desires. And that's where the starting point is for developing the personality of your brand, using archetypes, using the archetype framework to start off with your archetype and your archetypal mix. And I go into that in the course, using a combination of two different personalities. But that then is the basis for your personality. You want to go on and then develop that further in terms of giving your brand a tone of voice, a language profile, opinions, attitudes, so that when you go into the market with your brand, it feels like a real person. You're not communicating as a corporate entity. You know who this brand is. You know who the brand persona is, what their brand personality is, what their attitudes and opinions are. So when you're writing a piece of content, when you're writing copy for your website, when you're writing an advertisement, you're speaking in the voice of the brand, and that personality comes out. So using the archetype framework is where I start to develop my brand personalities, and it's what I teach as well, and it's a really useful framework.
Great. Thank you for that insight. Juan Carlson also had a very similar question, so you could have some additional insights. Do you have any action tips on matching brand and audience archetypes?
Yes. So you need to first understand who your audience is. So again, this goes back to the basics of branding, and one of the first steps you go through is to understand who your audience is. And when you start to really understand who they are, and again, there's a workbook for this, just like there is in every element, then there's very specific questions that you want to ask this audience. Now, you're not going to be able to ask them directly. You're going to need to pull these insights from the research that you do. But essentially, what you want to find out is what their overarching desires are. So what kind of personality are they, on a day-to-day basis? But then you want to look into the desires that they have based on the solution that you offer. So they have a want or need, and they have a desire around that want or need. And if you're able to understand the desire around that want or need and the desire of their overall personality, then you're able to really understand not just who they are as a person, but who they are in this particular situation. Because the desire that they have in and around this problem that your brand solves is really, really important. If you're able to understand that, then you're able to tailor the personality around that desire. You're able to then tailor the communication framework around that personality as well. So getting down into who your audience is, with your demographics and your psychographics, that's just the starting point. I have seen articles out there that, the way to find your audience is by using demographics and psychographics. And this will just define who your audience is not. That's just the starting point. You really need to lift the lid then on the emotions that they go through, the journey that they're on, and what has led them to this point. And it's really when you understand the full picture, can you tap into the emotions that they're going through in and around the problem that they have. And that's really where you get to understand them. You really get to understand their desires there. And that's when you can kind of step back and go, okay, how do I appeal to that desire? So that would be my tip in building a personality using the archetypal framework, is to really get down into the bare bones of the emotion that they have attached to the problem. And look, emotions are broken up into your direct and your indirect conflict. So you've got your direct conflict, which is the consequences of not solving the problem that you have, and then there's your indirect conflict, which is the emotional consequences of not solving that problem. You might not be able to you know, let's say you wanted to lift weights and you wanted to bulk up, and obviously if you're able to overcome that problem, you're going to be bulky, you're going to be, you're going to have the body that you want to have. But what are the emotional consequences of that? What are the emotional consequences of being able to achieve that? And what are the emotional consequences of not being able to achieve that? So really getting down into the nitty gritty of the emotional attachment that your audience has in and around the problem that you solve is really where you're going to pull out the best personality for your brand.
Yeah, too true. And I really love this section of your course. And when I first learned about brand archetypes, I was like blown away. And just learning and going down that route it's crazy how much emotion is attached to decision making and brand building as well. So it's definitely something you should learn about. Even if you don't take the course, it's just a whole other area that's worth exploring for
And
sure.
and yeah, just to kind of expand on that a bit as well. There's an entire section in the course about neuroscience, and this is an area that fascinates me. So the neuroscience, the psychology behind why we do what we do as people, and this is really important for understanding branding, because essentially you're trying to connect a brand, be it a product or a service, or the overall idea of the brand with somebody's mind. Okay, so if you understand how their mind works, how the triune brain works in terms of the reptilian brain, the limbic system, the neocortex, the more you understand about how we digest information, why we retain certain information and why we discard certain information, then you can start to understand how you're going to develop your communication strategy around your understanding of the triune brain. And this is this is so beneficial, and this opened up a huge can of worms for me in terms of what else do I not know. So neuroscience is like, for me, it's fascinating. I know for a lot of people in this field, it's fascinating as well, and the psychology behind it as well. So really understanding human behavior is a really important part of building a strategic brand.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I also find that fascinating, and especially about the brain functions and how that's all works. So I
Yeah.
think that the next question I have is from Janelle McComey, who asks, how does one find a balance between authentic personal expression and being relatable to your target market when it comes to personal branding?
Okay, in relation to authenticity, there's no substitute for that. So when we try to develop a personality for a brand, a business brand, then we're trying to develop a personality that doesn't exist. We're trying to make the brand more human. When it comes to your personal brand, you are the brand, so you're already human. You already have your personality. You already have your traits, and it then becomes about extracting the characteristics about your personality that are most aligned to who your audience is, especially around what you do for them. So you're not replacing who you are, and there is no substitute for authenticity. No archetypal framework or no brand personality that you can develop on top of your own personality will replace your own authentic self. So you need to get comfortable in your own skin. You need to understand what about your personality appeals to your target market, and where you can really extract the characteristics that suit that personality and that suit your target audience, and really kind of double down on them. So understand what's going to connect with your audience based on who you already are. Don't create something that's not already there, and but you can extract traits and characteristics that are more aligned to who your audience is, so you better connect with them. So the short answer to that is, don't change who you are. Be authentic. Go all in on yourself. Be comfortable in your own skin, and get better at being comfortable in your own skin. And that takes time. It takes a bit of experience, but just push on through. Go with it. The more you put yourself out there, the more comfortable you become in your own skin, and there's no substitute for that authenticity.
Perfect. Yeah. And we're going to wrap it up. We have one more question here, and that's from another hard name, Yubak Anama Amaka, and also Hard Designer, which just sounds like a business name, not a real name. How do you develop a good brand name?
Well, the brand, unfortunately for brand builders, we often don't get to work on the brand name because, as you know, when somebody comes to you looking for a logo or a brand identity, chances are they've got a brand name already. They've come up with a brand name themselves, whether it was them on their own, them with their business partner, them with their wife and kids, whatever it may be. They've come up with this name, and they're probably emotionally attached to it as well. They've they might have named it after their childhood address or their first cat or dog, or they might just have come up with a name that sounds good to them. But everything within branding is strategic, and the name is a perfect example of that. When I teach the brand strategy framework, you'll see that the brand name doesn't come into it until we've developed pretty much most of the brand, because at the end of the day, the brand name is just a form of communication. And it's also another opportunity for you to plant a seed in the mind of your audience as to the position that you want to own. So if you come up with a brand name, or a brand owner comes up with a brand name, and then you go ahead and develop the strategy, then chances are that brand name is not going to be aligned to the brand strategy, or you're going to have to somehow adapt the brand strategy to fit the brand name. Whereas if you develop the brand name at the end of the brand strategy process, then you can use that as a tool, as a communication tool, to really focus in on the position that you want to own in the mind of your audience. Now, as I said, most business owners, when they come to you, they've already got that name there. They're emotionally attached to it. But if you can open up the conversation for them to change the name, and they're open to that idea, and you explain why as well. You explain that it's not just a name for the sake of it. It's a strategic tool that we use to plant a seed in the mind of our audience. Then they might be open to that. And as I said, once you understand the position that you want your brand to take in the market, you understand the value that your differentiation strategy offers your audience. You understand the pain points of your audience, everything they're going through, what they connect with their personality. Then you're in a much better position to be able to decide, okay, well, what's a good name for this brand now? So this kind of flies in the face of traditional brand building, and I know that most brand names don't get developed like this, but really, if you're able to hold off on that brand name development until you've gone through all of that and you're armed with all of that knowledge, then your brand name is just going to be a lot more strategic, and it's got a lot more chance of sitting in the intended place that you want to own in the mind of your audience. And that, tied in with the logo and the tagline, helps with that brand recall and helps to establish that position in the mind of your audience.
For sure. And I think the running theme here is all about alignment, and that's really what brand strategy is all about. And I heard you say alignment a lot, and I think that's a great way to summarize this talk. And I really appreciate your time answering these questions, and super insightful. So, and if there are any other questions, let us know, and we'll be happy to help. So thanks again, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. And yeah, as you said, any more questions, whether you want to hit me up on LinkedIn, or hit you up on LinkedIn, or in your designers group, just hit them up on there. We might do another one of these sessions again, or we might be able to answer you directly. So thanks for having me on, and I'll chat to you next time. I hope you got some value from that video, from that chat. If there were any questions that you have that weren't answered, then please feel free to drop them in the box below, and I'll do my best to get to all of those questions. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. It'll let you know when I've got a new video like this coming out. And until then, I will see you in the next video.